Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If copy system in Naruto. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name in the description below. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 211, Shin's True Objective. Shin gazed at Mei Terumi on the battlefield. He had brought her here to test her strength, but that wasn't his only goal. He also wanted to sever her ties with Kirigakure. Since Kushina had recruited her into Suikagakure, he couldn't allow her to remain loyal to Kiri. That was why he brought her to the battlefield. After this battle, you'll be a Kiri missing Mei Terumi, Shin muttered to himself. He didn't care about Mei's future or the fate of Kirigakure. His eyes, which were usually black and white, turned into the Nine-Tomo Rinna Tenseigan. Several Kiri shinobi faltered, then their minds were controlled. The Tenseigan could control people's minds and actions, and Shin's Rinna Tenseigan was even stronger. He could even control Kage-level shinobi with ease. The controlled Kiri shinobi attacked Mei Terumi without mercy. Mei Terumi's face was filled with conflict as she watched them approach. She gripped her kunai tightly, but she didn't attack. She couldn't bring herself to attack her fellow Kiri shinobi. But her hesitation only resulted in fiercer attacks. 5 Kiri shinobi used water release jutsu. Powerful techniques like the Great Waterfall technique and the Water Dragon Bullet technique were unleashed upon her. Any one of these could kill her. Shinobi were physically fragile. Even Kage-level shinobi could be killed if they were hit by a powerful jutsu without defending, let alone an elite jonin like Mei Terumi. Of course, not all shinobi were physically weak. Taijutsu specialists were very durable. But Mei Terumi wasn't one. Stop attacking me, or I won't hold back. Mei used the body flicker technique to escape the barrage of attacks. She was furious. They had almost killed her. Kill that Kiri traitor! One of the Kiri shinobi yelled, ignoring her warning and continuing his assault. Damn it! Mei Terumi couldn't refute that. Having agreed to join Suikagakure, she was technically a traitor to Kirigakure. If you want to kill me, don't blame me for fighting back. The only response she received were kunai and shuriken, some with explosive tags attached. Lava release, melting apparition technique. At this point in her life, she only had lava release Kekei Genkai and had not yet awakened boil release. Although her lava release was theoretically powerful enough to melt Susanoo, Shin doubted Mei Terumi could currently achieve such a feat. She wasn't at her peak yet, still, being an elite jonin at her age was impressive. Her lava release melted the Kiri shinobi, killing them instantly. Mei Terumi's eyes were filled with complex emotions. She didn't want to kill her fellow Kiri shinobi, but she wouldn't just stand there and die. I've already made my choice. She pushed down her conflicting emotions and threw a kunai, killing the shinobi who'd tried to sneak attack her. Mei Terumi no longer cared if they were Konoha or Kiri shinobi. They were all her enemies now. After half an hour, Shin decided it was enough. He could sense Mei Terumi's chakra was almost depleted. Yamatsu Hirasaka. Shin opened a portal and pulled Mei Terumi back. Mei Terumi was about to attack, but she relaxed when she saw Shin. Not bad. You're quite talented. Mei Terumi raised her chin proudly, accepting his praise. She was indeed a genius. Don't get cocky. You might be a genius, but you're still far from the top. Shin's words deflated her pride. She had to admit he was right. She had been in the land of whirlpools for a while now, and she knew she was no match for Kushina, Tsunade, Makoto, or even Konan, who was around the same age as her. This had humbled her. She wasn't as strong as she'd thought. Let's go home. Shin glanced at the ongoing battle between Konoha and Kiri, but he didn't intervene. With his current strength, he could wipe them all out with a single Shinra Tensei. That was why he wasn't interested in participating. He returned to the land of whirlpools with Mei Terumi. So, how was Mei's test? Kushina asked as soon as they arrived. Elite Jonin level. But with her lava release Kekii Genkai, she can fight a Quasi-Kage. Mei, you have a Kekii Genkai? I didn't know. Kushina looked at Mei. Mei Terumi was embarrassed. She had deliberately hidden it. As a shinobi, it was natural to hide your trump cards. I'm so jealous. I want a Kekii Genkai, too. Tsunade said. Shin rolled his eyes. Didn't she consider her sage body a Kekii Genkai? Tsunade, if you're interested, I can teach you would release. But whether you can awaken it or not depends on you. Of course I'm interested. It's wood release. I won't pass up the opportunity. Wood release was very appealing to Tsunade. It had been her childhood dream to awaken it and gain the power of her grandfather, Hashirama Senju. Chapter 212, You Still Have Great Potential. Shin, I received a mission. Kushina suddenly ran over with Mei Terumi while Shin was guiding Tsunade's wood release training. A mission? What kind of mission? Shin asked, puzzled. To assassinate the third Raikage. I took it from the black market. The client seems to be a Wagakure. Kushina handed Shin a mission scroll. Shin wasn't surprised that Kushina was taking missions from the black market. She had told him she wanted to earn money. Although they weren't short on money, Kushina had suddenly decided she wanted to earn some. And since she wasn't going to get a job, the black market was her only option. How much is the reward? Tsunade asked curiously. Quite a lot. 500 million Ryo. Take a look. Shin handed the mission details to Tsunade. That's a lot. With that much money, I'll never have to worry about money again. Tsunade's eyes turned into Ryo signs. Shin was speechless. She was already rich. I also saw a bounty on Mei, issued by Kirigakure, Kushina said, glancing at Mei. Mei was listed as a missing nin with a 15 million Ryo bounty. That was surprisingly high. Mei Terumi was startled and took a step back, looking at Kushina warily. You're not planning to collect my bounty, are you? Not yet. Maybe later, if we need the money. Besides, your value might increase. I'm quite optimistic about your potential, Mei. You have a lot of room to grow. Kushina patted Mei's shoulder. Mei twitched. If she could defeat Kushina, she'd do it right now. Mei, you're only worth 50 million. Any thoughts on that? Shin teased. It's not fair. Mei complained. Setting the scroll aside, Shin turned back to Kushina. So, have you officially accepted this bounty on the third Raikage? Of course. It's a lot of money. Kushina said, her eyes gleaming. The third Raikage is no pushover. Otherwise, he wouldn't be worth quite this much. Don't forget you'll have to deal with the rest of Kumo's forces before you even get to him. Shin reminded her. If Kushina recklessly attacked the third Raikage, she might fail. It wasn't that he thought she couldn't defeat the Raikage, but the Raikage wasn't alone. I know, but I have a plan. Makoto agreed to help me. Kushina had asked Makoto for help, and Makoto hadn't refused. If Makoto's going, then it should be fine. With Makoto and Kushina working together, they could handle almost anything, as long as they didn't encounter someone like Madara Uchiha or Hashirama Senju. Just to be safe, I'll come with you. Shin said after some thought. He decided to go with them. He was bored staying in the land of whirlpools. There was no one else there besides them. It was peaceful, but also boring. Great. Kushina agreed immediately. She had wanted Shin to come along. Tsunade, what about you? I'd like to go, but I'm focused on wood release right now. So I'll pass. Tsunade was completely absorbed in mastering wood release. She didn't have time to go on a mission. Only Shin, Kushina, and Makoto would be leaving. Tsunade, Konan, and Mei would stay behind. Konan and Mei had also wanted to go, but Tsunade had insisted Konan stay to cook. She didn't trust her own cooking, so she needed Konan. As for Mei, Shin had told her to stay. She was too weak to be of any help. Makoto, you know you don't have to come if you don't want to, Kushina said. Since Shin was going, Makoto could stay. Actually, I'm mostly here to supervise someone, Makoto said, glancing at Shin. Exclamation point. Shin looked at Makoto, puzzled. Who was she supervising? Her gaze made it clear she was referring to him. But what did she need to supervise him for? Last time you went out with Conan, you ended up doing something you shouldn't have, Makoto said pointedly. This time I'm going with Kushina. What's the problem? Oh, so you don't want me to come? Makoto's gaze turned even more pointed, and Shin was speechless. No, it's great that you're coming with us. I see. But Kushina looks disappointed. Probably because with me here, you two won't get alone time, Makoto said, looking at Kushina, whose face had indeed fallen. Yeah, I am. If Makoto didn't come, it would just be Shin and me. Kushina regretted asking Makoto to come. If she hadn't, she and Shin could have been alone. Too bad, I'm not going to let that happen. I knew it. Kushina pouted. This was her mistake, but even if she hadn't asked, Makoto would have come along anyway. Anyway, Kumo is at war with Konoha right now, so the third Raikage bound to be on the battlefield. That's where we're headed, Shin changed the subject. How did you know, Shin? Kushina asked curiously. I don't often leave the land of whirlpools, but I still keep up with events in the shinobi world. Chapter 213, Danzo, are you here to extort me? After leaving the land of whirlpools, Shin and his team slowly made their way towards the battlefield between Kumo and Konoha. Can you guys hurry up? You're so slow. Kushina, who was walking ahead, turned around and glared at Shin and Makoto, who were chatting and laughing. Kushina, why are you in such a hurry? Are you afraid someone will steal the third Raikage's head? Shin asked. Although the third Raikage did die in the Third Shinobi World War in the original story, things were different now. The third Raikage wouldn't go to the land of Earth to die. He was currently leading the Kumo forces against Konoha. That's true, the sooner we finish this, the better, Kushina replied. Actually, we should think about how to earn more money, Shin said, looking at Kushina. Earn more money? How? Kushina's eyes lit up. She was always interested in making money. Kumo is fighting Konoha now. That means the third Raikage is Konoha's enemy. So? It's simple. We kill the third Raikage and get Konoha to pay us. We'll earn money from both sides. What do you think? Shin asked. Although Shin wasn't short on money, he certainly wouldn't mind earning more. No one would say no to extra cash. Brilliant! Why didn't I think of that? Kushina clapped her hands excitedly, deciding to go with this plan. You didn't think of it because you're not very smart. Makoto's words hit Kushina like a dagger. Kushina staggered back, clutching her chest dramatically. Makoto! I've decided I'm ending our friendship, Kushina said angrily, then turned away with a huff. Of course, if you sincerely apologize to me, maybe I'll graciously forgive you. After a while, Kushina changed her mind. Oh please, Kushina, by all means, go ahead and end our friendship, Makoto said with a smile. That's so mean. Kushina pouted. Shin and his team didn't waste any more time. Shin used Yamatsu Hirasaka to take them to the battlefield between Kumo and Konoha. The battlefield was located at the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rice Fields. Konoha shinobi were defending stubbornly, preventing Kumo from breaking through. It seems Danzo is the one commanding the Konoha forces, Shin said, based on the information he had gathered. He hadn't been paying much attention to the war. Really? So we have to deal with Danzo? Kushina frowned. She didn't like Danzo. They confirmed Danzo was indeed the commander. Let's go find him. Shin's eyes flickered, and a black portal appeared. He stepped through it, followed by Kushina and Makoto. Who's there? Danzo, who was sitting in a chair deep in thought, jumped up, his one good eye gleaming with vigilance.
Danzo, long time no see. Have you forgotten me already? Shin asked calmly. Uzumaki Shin, what are you doing here? Danzo's fists clenched when he saw Shin.
He was nervous.
Relax, I'm not here to kill you.
I'd hate to taint my hands.
Though your new look is interesting.
Shin looked at Danzo, whose right eye was bandaged.
He hadn't transplanted a Sharingan yet.
He had just lost his right eye. The bandage was still stained with blood.
Shin's teasing angered Danzo. No one dared to talk to him like that anymore.
But he didn't dare show his anger.
He asked with a dark expression, "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to offer you a deal." Shin created 3 wooden chairs with wood release and had Makoto and Kushina sit down. Wood release was convenient. He could create chairs wherever he went. Not just chairs, but houses too. Danzo's eyes widened. Was that wood release?
He quickly dismissed the thought.
He didn't want to believe Shin could use wood release. What kind of deal?
He wanted to know Shin's intentions. He had a feeling it wasn't good. He didn't think Shin's visit was a good omen.
You must be having a hard time with the third raikage, right?
Shin asked, his gaze fixed on Danzo like a predator eyeing its prey.
Danzo didn't deny it and nodded, his face dark.
The raikage was the one who had injured him and almost killed him.
We can eliminate the third raikage for you. How much are you willing to pay? Danzo's eyes gleamed.
If they could really kill the third raikage, he would pay any price. 100 million Rio, Danzo said tentatively. He thought it was a generous offer. Of course, it wasn't his final offer. Shin's smile vanished, and he looked at Danzo with a flat expression.
Is that all the third raikage is worth to you? At least 10 times that.
Shin said calmly.
What? 1 billion Rio? Why don't you just rob me? Even Danzo couldn't sit still anymore.
Although he had said he would pay any price, 1 billion Rio was too much.
Is it too much?
Then forget it, Shin said, standing up. But since you've wasted my time, I should at least collect a service fee of 100 million Rio.
Danzo's face turned red. Was Shin here to extort him? 100 million Rio for doing nothing? And he hadn't even asked Shin to come. This was robbery. Danzo had never encountered anyone so shameless. Shin, I think we should just kill him. We can get some money for his head. Kushina said.
She remembered seeing a bounty on Danzo's head on the black market. But it wasn't as high as the third raikage's.
Danzo's face grew even paler. They were going to kill him for money? Judging by Kushina's cold and murderous eyes, it didn't seem like she was joking at all. Chapter 214, The Strongest Shinobi in the World. Fine. 1 billion Rio. I'll pay it.
Just make sure you kill the third raikage.
Danzo took a deep breath and said.
Although he felt the price was high, he was willing to pay it to save his own life. But he wasn't sure if Shin would actually kill the third raikage after receiving the money. It wasn't that he thought Shin couldn't do it, but he was worried Shin would take the money and run.
If that happened, there was nothing Danzo could do. Kushina smiled slightly, the murderous intent on her face instantly fading.
Shin had been right, Danzo was a coward.
Pay the deposit first, Shin said calmly. Danzo glanced at Shin, but didn't object. He knew he had no choice. He reluctantly paid 100 million Rio as a deposit. He couldn't afford to pay more now. Don't forget the remaining 900 million Rio. Otherwise, Konoha can prepare to be rebuilt.
I'm sure the cost of rebuilding Konoha will be much higher than this, I'm sure you understand what I mean.
Shin glanced at Danzo, then left with Kushina and Makoto. If it weren't for the money, he wouldn't even bother with Danzo.
After Shin left, Danzo also relaxed. He had been worried about his safety with Shin around.
He didn't even dare mention the death of his subordinate, Uzumaki Kai. Are we going after the third raikage now? do we need a plan? Makoto asked Shin. Makoto, do you think we need a plan? Kushina asked before Shin could answer.
With their strength, they didn't need a plan. They could just barge in and kill the third Raikage.
Kushina, have you forgotten something? I thought you were still angry at me and weren't talking to me, Makoto said with a playful smile. Kushina's face fell. She had forgotten. She turned away with a huff. Stop teasing her, Makoto. She's about to explode, Shin said, patting Makoto's head. But she's right. We don't need a plan to deal with the third Raikage. They could just go and kill him. I'm not saying it's impossible, it just feels a bit arrogant, don't you think? Makoto expressed her hesitation.
Directly barging into their camp to kill their leader was truly brazen.
Arrogant?
I don't think so, Shin shrugged. With their strength, devising a plan to deal with the third Raikage would be laughable.
Kushina's already gone.
Let's go after her, Shin said, taking Makoto's hand and chasing after Kushina.
Kushina was pouting. She was probably still angry. Shin thought she looked cute. I'll teleport us directly into the Kumo camp. Shin held Makoto and Kushina's hands and used Yamatsu Hirasaka to teleport them to the nearby Kumo camp. Shin.
You're not allowed to interfere this time, Kushina said.
Then why did you bring me here? Shin asked curiously. I didn't bring you here. You came on your own. I did, but you wanted me to come, didn't you?
Shin looked at Kushina.
And no.
I didn't, Kushina said, turning away with a huff.
Who are you? A dark-skinned Kumo shinobi drew his sword and looked at Shin, Kushina, and Makoto warily. Makoto activated her Sharingan and used Genjutsu to control the shinobi.
We can ask him where the third Raikage is.
That'll save us the trouble of searching, Makoto said with a smile.
I could find him with Kagura's mind's eye, Shin said. He had fought the third Raikage before and knew his chakra signature.
He could easily find him with the mind's eye of Kagura.
But it didn't matter which method they used, as long as they found the third Raikage.
They learned the third Raikage's location from the Kumo shinobi. He was nearby. Let's just say hello then. Kushina condensed an enormous big ball Rasengan in her palm and immediately hurled it toward the command tent where the third Raikage was located. This was no ordinary Rasengan, it was the much more destructive big ball Rasengan, with power far exceeding the original. Boom! The loud explosion immediately drew the attention of every Kumo shinobi nearby.
Moments later, the furious third Raikage burst forth from the ruined command tent. Right behind him stood his son, A, and A's adopted brother and partner, the current Eight-Tails Jinchuriki, Killer Bee. A was the future fourth Raikage.
Yo! Who's the idiot fool wrecking our base?
I'll twist his head and smash his face. Killer Bee shouted in his usual ridiculous rap-style manner.
A clenched his fists. His brother had a screw loose.
He worried that Killer Bee would someday get himself killed.
It's been a while since anyone dared to speak to me like that.
You have guts.
Tell me, how do you want to die?
Shin calmly stared at Killer Bee with a smile.
Exclamation point.
A glared at Shin, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Take B and leave immediately, the third Raikage ordered sternly.
What?
A looked at his father in confusion.
That's Uzumaki Shin, the third Raikage said grimly. He hadn't expected to encounter Shin in this war, yet here he was again. A's eyes widened. Uzumaki Shin, the strongest shinobi in the world? A wasn't convinced, having never experienced Shin's power firsthand during the Second Shinobi World War. A couldn't accept his father's fear.
In terms of age, Uzumaki Shin was even younger than him. Considering he himself was an unparalleled genius, A refused to acknowledge that Shin could possibly be stronger. Deep down, A firmly believed Uzumaki Shin's reputation was greatly exaggerated, and the title of strongest was merely blown out of proportion. Now that they had met face to face, A felt eager to personally challenge Uzumaki Shin and see if the so-called strongest really lived up to his legendary reputation. Chapter 215, I'm Not a Devil. A's eyes were filled with fighting spirit as he stared at Shin. Lightning crackled around his body, forming a sort of armor.
This was the lightning release chakra mode. Only 2 people in Kumobikure could use it, the third Raikage and A. This technique was basically a requirement for becoming the Raikage. As the third Raikage's son, A had been training in it since childhood. Shin noticed A's battle-ready stance.
A was much younger than his future self, but Shin still recognized him.
A, stand down.
The third Raikage's expression changed.
I order you to retreat with the other shinobi.
The third Raikage's gaze was resolute, his decision made.
He would sacrifice himself to hold off Uzumaki Shin.
Father, please let me fight, pleaded with his father. As the third Raikage, I command you to withdraw with the others.
Now.
The third Raikage's tone brooked no argument.
He knew what his son was thinking. And he also knew it was no match for Uzumaki Shin.
Even he was no match for Shin. A with his far inferior strength, would be annihilated in seconds.
This is an order. Do you intend to disobey and become a missing nin? The third Raikage glared at A. Hey, can you guys tone down the melodrama?
Shin interjected, rolling his eyes at the dramatic exchange.
Uzumaki Shin, I thought you left Konoha. Why are you here? Was your departure a lie?
The third Raikage looked at Shin cautiously. He didn't think Shin's presence here was a good omen.
Leaving Konoha doesn't mean I can't attack you, Shin said calmly. Your target seems to be me.
If so, please, leave the others out of this. The third Raikage said, looking at the surrounding Kumo shinobi.
Of course. I'm not some kind of monster, I only kill those who deserve it. As for the rest, well, if they want to die, who am I to stop them?
Shin said with a smile.
Enough talk. Let's fight.
Kushina said, then attacked the third Raikage with a Rasengan. The third Raikage swiftly activated his lightning release chakra mode, forming a lightning armor that deflected the Rasengan effortlessly. He could even withstand the Rasen Shuriken, let alone the Rasengan.
A, you and B take the others and retreat. No matter what happens, even if I die, don't try to avenge me.
The third Raikage yelled to A.
And if I die, you will be the next Raikage. I expect you to lead Kumobikure wisely, understand? And Dodai, you are to assist him.
Dodai looked at the third Raikage and nodded, then pulled it back with a heavy heart. Let's go, don't disappoint the Raikage-sama.
I understand. Clenched his fists. He knew this wasn't a simple matter. His father was ordering them to retreat even though they had the numerical advantage. There were 4,000 Kumo shinobi here.
This meant Shin was incredibly powerful.
He had wanted to fight Shin, but now he realized that was a foolish thought. Dodai, is Uzumaki Shin really that strong? A asked Dodai. Killer Bee also looked at Dodai. Strong?
He's incredibly strong, strong enough that seeing him again makes me tremble in fear, Dodai said, looking at A with a complicated expression. He would never forget that colossal Susanoo during the Second Shinobi World War, capable of cleaving mountains with a single stroke. They were like ants compared to that power. Tutai exhaled. So hurry up and leave, don't let the third Raikage-sama's sacrifice be in vain.
Damn it! My father will be fine. He has to be. A looked at his father, then gritted his teeth and led the Kumo shinobi away.
I thought we'd have to fight the other Kumo shinobi too, but it seems they're all gone now. Only the third Raikage remains.
Makoto said, looking at the retreating Kumo shinobi.
They were scared away by me, Shin said with a chuckle.
He wasn't joking.
The Kumo shinobi had indeed been scared away by him.
Kushina, can you handle the third Raikage alone? Makoto looked at Kushina, who was fighting the third Raikage. The third Raikage's defense was so strong that Kushina's attacks weren't effective.
Although the third Raikage knew he probably wouldn't survive, he wasn't going to just stand there and die. If there was a chance to live, he would take it.
Don't underestimate Kushina.
She should be able to defeat the third Raikage alone.
Shin said, though he suspected Kushina would have to use Sage Mode to win.
The third Reikage was one of the strongest Kage, his power bordering on Super Kage level.
She's struggling. I'll help her. After all, she did ask for my help. Mikoto said.
She activated her Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan.
Kushina might not like it, but it'll be faster if you two work together. Shin said. It wouldn't be easy for Kushina to defeat the third Reikage alone. But with Mikoto's help, it would be a piece of cake. Susanoo. A massive pink complete body Susanoo, over 100 meters tall, appeared.
Its color might make it seem less intimidating, but no one dared to underestimate it.
The Susanoo's destructive power was undeniable. It could easily cut a mountain in half. Kushina. Mikoto called out. Kushina understood and used a jutsu to force the third Reikage back, then retreated. Mikoto then controlled the Susanoo and slashed at the third Reikage. The ground split open before the sword even reached it. Chapter 216, The Third Reikage's Death.
The third Reikage watched the earth split before him, cold sweat dripping down his forehead.
If he hadn't dodged at the last moment, he'd be in 2 pieces. Another Mangekyo Sharingan user. Uchiha Mikoto, huh?
Lightning crackled around him as he looked at the Susanoo. Even though he knew the Susanoo wasn't Shin's, he still felt a sense of despair. The third Reikage is quite fast.
Shin watched the Reikage. His speed was incredible, even Kushina and Mikoto would struggle to hit him. Sage Mode. While the Reikage was focused on Mikoto's Susanoo, Kushina activated Sage Mode.
She couldn't activate it instantly, but Mikoto had bought her time. Senjutsu chakra flared around her, cracking the ground beneath her feet.
Strength of 100 seal.
Kushina's taijutsu was already strong, now, amplified by Sage Mode and the strength of 100 seal, her punch could shatter a mountain. She appeared before the third Reikage in a flash.
Die.
Her fist connected with the Reikage's face, his body flying backwards like a ragdoll, his chest caved in.
That should kill him, right? Kushina said to herself. No, you underestimate him, Kushina.
He's known as the strongest shield and spear, Shin said, appearing beside her.
Strongest shield? Don't make me laugh.
Kushina had heard how Shin had almost killed the third Reikage in their previous encounter.
He'd almost been beaten to death, how could he be the strongest shield? He's still very strong. Even Uchiha Madara wouldn't be able to defeat him easily. Uchiha Madara? I don't think he's even a match for me now. Mikoto deactivated her Susanoo and joined them. Mikoto, even though you've awakened the Eternal Mangekyo, Madara has a lot more tricks up his sleeve. Don't underestimate him just because he's old. Madara might be on his last breath, kept alive by the demonic statue of the outer path, he was still a force to be reckoned with. Underestimating him would be a mistake. Cough, cough. The third Reikage spat out blood and struggled to his feet. Hellstab, one-finger Nukite. He unleashed his strongest attack, the one-finger Nukite. It was probably the strongest piercing attack. Kushina, don't block that head-on. You'll get hurt, Shin warned. I know, I'm not stupid. Kushina had wanted to block it, but Shin's warning stopped her. Sage Art, Super Big Ball Raisin Shuriken. A massive raisin shuriken, capable of obliterating a small mountain, flew towards the Reikage. The reanimated third Reikage in the original story could block a raisin shuriken without injury, but this was a Sage Art, Super Big Ball Raisin Shuriken. If the Wind Style, Raisin Shuriken was an S-rank jutsu, then the Sage Art, Super Big Ball Raisin Shuriken was an SS-rank jutsu. Boom! The Reikage was blasted away before he could even get close to Kushina. Fire Style, Great Fire Annihilation. Mikoto used a large-scale fire style jutsu, creating a sea of flames that engulfed the third Reikage. That should kill him, Mikoto said. She was making sure the third Reikage was dead. That's some impressive fire style, Mikoto. Shin was amazed by the scale of her attack. It was a magnificent sight, comparable to Uchiha Madara's fire style. Too bad he's not dead yet.
I didn't expect him to be so resilient. Shin could still sense the Rakich's life force.
No way, he's still alive after that? Kushina couldn't believe it.
She thought her super big ball raisin shuriken and Makoto's great fire annihilation would kill him for sure.
The flames dissipated, revealing the Rakich emerging from underground.
He'd buried himself to survive the fire, though he was severely injured and burned.
You're tough, third Rakich. Cough, cough. I'm not that easy to kill. Fine, I'll end this quickly.
Shin appeared before the third Rakich in an instant.
The third Rakich didn't even see him move.
This time, it wasn't spacetime ninjutsu but pure speed. Shin created a black chakra receiver rod and pierced the Rakich's heart. No matter how strong he was, a pierced heart meant death. The Rakich's eyes dimmed, and his body collapsed.
He's finally dead. Didn't expect you to intervene, Kushina said, walking over. I just wanted to finish this quickly. He's dead now.
Shin looked at the Rakich's corpse. It was still valuable. It would make excellent material for the 6 Paths of Pain. Of course, Shin had no use for the 6 Paths of Pain, but it would be good for Edo Tensei.
He had already learned this kinjutsu. To use Edo Tensei, he needed a certain amount of the deceased's DNA. Chapter 217, The Hyuga Clan's Gentle Fist.
Shin stowed away the third Rakich's body and turned to Kushina and Makoto with a casual shrug.
Let's go, he said. Time to collect our payment from Danzo. They returned to the Konoha camp and headed straight for Danzo.
The old warhawk looked bewildered to see them back so soon.
Danzo, Shin said flatly, got my commission ready? All ready. You mean the third Rakich is dead? Danzo asked, still somewhat skeptical.
He knew better than most just how formidable the third Rakich was, especially with rumors of him battling entire armies single-handedly.
Even if it was Uzumaki Shin, dealing with that man shouldn't have been easy.
But Shin merely dumped the third Rakich's corpse at Danzo's feet. Even though Danzo's face remained unreadable, his mind was in turmoil.
However, another problem arose: how to pay. Danzo inwardly cursed.
He had known it was a huge sum, but Konoha's finances had been stretched thin by the Third Shinobi World War, and Danzo was loath to part with the private funds he'd set aside for Root.
Will you allow me some time to gather the money? Danzo asked finally.
Of course, Shin replied lightly.
As long as I get to hold onto your head as collateral. Danzo's expression darkened. That was essentially demanding his life.
But he truly didn't have the cash on hand, and raising such an astronomical sum wasn't easy.
How about this? Danzo suggested, forcing calm into his voice.
I have copies of certain secret techniques from each of Konoha's major clans.
Let me offer them first, just to buy us a bit more time. Danzo knew he had to stall.
His priority was survival, and handing over some clan techniques was a small price to pay.
Secret techniques? Shin raised an eyebrow. He immediately thought of the Yamanaka, Akimichi, and Nara clans.
Their jutsu were quite unique, and while they weren't particularly useful to him, they might still hold some value.
Fine, Shin said at last.
But I still expect the rest of the money, in full, delivered to the land of whirlpools.
If you fail to deliver, well, I wouldn't mind paying Konoha a little visit.
There was no mistaking Shin's tone. If the money didn't come, he was fully prepared to raze Konoha to the ground. He'd have liked nothing more than to see Shin dead. But for now, he could only compromise. Soon, Shin and his 2 companions left Danzo's presence, having gained the thick scroll of stolen clan techniques.
Truly Danzo, Shin remarked as they walked away, flipping through the scroll.
He's managed to get his hands on secret techniques from nearly every major clan. For others, these might be prized treasures, but to Shin, they were more like interesting footnotes. Still, flipping through them might spark an idea or two.
Ha! This one's from the Hyuga clan, Gentle Fist?
Shin murmured, scanning a few pages.
The Hyuga were notoriously secretive about their techniques.
The fact that Danzo had managed to obtain a copy was impressive in itself.
Gentle Fist only works well with the Byakugan, right? Makoto noted, reading over his shoulder. Otherwise, it's just fancy taijutsu. The gentle fist required the Byakugan to be effective. Without it, it was just an ordinary taijutsu style. Who said it's useless? Shin smirked. This might actually come in handy for me.
Unlike others, Shin possessed the Rinna Tenseigan, a combination of the Rinnegan and the Tenseigan's abilities, which encompassed all the capabilities of the Byakugan, but at a far more advanced level.
You can't learn the gentle fist without the Byakugan, can you? Kushina asked. Not exactly. You can still learn it, but it won't be as effective. It'll be like ordinary taijutsu. Without the Byakugan, the gentle fist's ability to pinpoint chakra points and seal an opponent's chakra couldn't be utilized. I can use the gentle fist now. Kushina, want to experience it firsthand? Shin asked with a smile. No thanks. Kushina quickly backed away. I'm not about to let you use me as a test dummy.
Shin laughed and continued flipping through the scrolls.
So, Makoto asked, are we heading back to Suikagakure now?
That depends, Shin replied.
What do you two want to do? Do you want to go back now? He turned to Kushina and Makoto, letting them decide.
We just got here.
Going back so soon would be boring, Kushina said. Might as well enjoy our time out. I agree, Makoto nodded.
It's rare to get a chance to explore freely.
Shin smirked. All right, Shin said, nodding. We'll stay out a while longer. Then Kushina suddenly remembered something. Oh, and I still need to collect the bounty, Kushina suddenly remembered.
The third Raikage's head is worth 500 million ryo.
Where do we collect it? Shin asked. Kushina shrugged.
I only know the location of one of their branches in the Land of Fire.
That's where I received the mission. It's not far from the Land of Whirlpools. Kushina admitted.
Then there's no rush.
We can do it when we get back. Shin agreed. As they continued walking, Shin absent-mindedly browsed the jutsu scrolls.
Though most of them were irrelevant to him, some were at least interesting. Ugh, the Aburame clan's insect breeding techniques.
Hard pass.
Shin tossed that scroll aside immediately.
Gives me the creeps. Kushina agreed.
Here, take these.
Shin handed Kushina and Makoto the Nara clan's shadow imitation technique and the Yamanaka clan's mind-body switch technique. He didn't give them the Akimichi clan's techniques. He didn't want Kushina and Makoto turning into fatties. And even if he did, they'd probably toss the scrolls away. Shin focused on the Hyuga's gentle fist.
Though the Hyuga clan was mostly background noise in the original story, their gentle fist was a powerful taijutsu style. In Shin's hands, it could be devastating.
Chapter 218, You're being too formal, Madara Uchiha.
Leaving the Land of Rain's central battlefield behind, Shin, Kushina, and Makoto did not immediately return to Suikagakure.
Kushina and Makoto both wanted Shin to take them on a bit of a scenic detour.
Shin, you've been studying that gentle fist technique for the past few days.
How's it going? Kushina asked. Obviously, I've already mastered it.
That kind of thing is simple for me, Shin replied casually. He wasn't bragging, he was simply stating a fact. Although the Hyuga's gentle fist style had multiple advanced techniques like 8 trigrams 64 palms, once he understood the logic, it was child's play. I'm still stuck on the shadow imitation technique, Kushina muttered.
I think I'll just drop it entirely. Indeed, the Nara clan's shadow-style jutsu didn't mesh well with her fighting style. Kushina already had adamantine sealing chains, which she felt were more convenient for restraining or sealing enemies. Since Kushina had made up her mind, Shin didn't bother to argue.
After all, this particular jutsu wouldn't improve her combat abilities much.
Makoto, you're still studying Yamanaka's techniques? Kushina asked, glancing over. Makoto nodded. She felt the mind-body switch technique could come in handy one day.
Even if it was only a side project, diving into other clans' techniques was an interesting challenge. Suddenly, Shin halted.
A faint, icy gleam flickered in his eyes. White Zetsu, are you going to come out on your own, or should I drag you out? Whoosh!
From below ground, a strange pale figure emerged.
White Zetsu gave Shin a respectful bow. As expected of Shin-sama. You always see right through me. White Zetsu emerged from the ground. It was no longer surprised by Shin's ability to detect it. At first, White Zetsu had been astonished every time Shin discovered him. By now, it was almost routine.
Gah, this creep again, let's just kill him, Kushina growled, pulling out a kunai.
She poised to throw the kunai. White Zetsu panicked. Wait! Don't kill me! I'm only here because Lord Madara asked me to deliver a message. He wants to see you, he says it's urgent.
He babbled in desperation, terrified that if Shin gave the order, he'd be diced into pieces.
Madara Uchiha wants to see me?
Shin narrowed his eyes.
Was Madara planning his revival? Yes. If not for Lord Madara's orders, I wouldn't dare approach you, Shin-sama. Shin, Mikoto asked, should we kill him now, or?
No, let him go.
Killing him is pointless, Shin said, glancing at White Zetsu. He knew there were countless White Zetsu, killing one wouldn't achieve anything. White Zetsu was only too glad for permission. He vanished in a blur, not sticking around to risk any further confrontation. He ran fast. That White Zetsu thing is creepy, Kushina said. Its ability to hide was unsettling.
If Shin hadn't spoken, she wouldn't have even known it was there. Though she had Kagura's mind's eye, a powerful sensory technique, she couldn't keep it active constantly.
White Zetsu isn't that dangerous, Shin responded. Black Zetsu is the real threat. Shin wasn't sure about Black Zetsu's abilities.
But considering the fact that it had manipulated events for over 1,000 years, and even deceived Madara himself.
Definitely no pushover. Shin, are you going to see Madara Uchiha? Mikoto asked. Yes. Shin's curiosity had been piqued. He wanted to know why Madara wanted to see him. Let's go. Shin used Yamatsu Hirasaka to teleport to Madara's underground lair with Kushina and Mikoto. Madara looked even older and more decrepit than before, practically a ghoul. Madara, I bet you used to be handsome in your prime. But now,
you look like some half-dead ghoul.
Not a pretty sight. Shin couldn't help but comment. Kushina cracked a grin, but Madara merely stood there with that stoic face, saying nothing. After a tense moment, he finally spoke, voice raspy. I called you here to discuss something important. Regarding the future. Future? Shin raised an eyebrow. So, you finally realized your time is almost up? He gave Madara a once-over, noting the flickering life force still anchored by the ghetto statue. Despite that life support, Madara was clearly on borrowed time. If I had to guess, you could probably last another 4 or 5 years, Shin estimated. It doesn't matter, Madara replied flatly. It's meaningless to me now. He recognized that his current body could never accomplish the grand plan. So, in his mind, better to set the stage for a future resurrection than to struggle on in vain. So you want me here just so you can share your will or something? Last words, maybe? Shin teased lightly.
Madara ignored the sarcasm, his tone grave.
For my eventual return, I will be searching for a pawn to revive me.
I hope you won't interfere with him. Oh, come on, Shin said, stepping forward and clapping Madara on the shoulder, enough force that Madara nearly staggered.
You're so formal. Aren't we partners? I can handle your revival, old man. Madara's eyes flared with annoyance, but he kept his voice calm. I'll handle my revival. Don't interfere. Madara didn't trust Shin.
He wouldn't entrust such an important task to him.
He even suspected Shin might try to prevent his revival. Oh. So you've already picked your pawn? Shin asked. No, Madara said curtly.
I haven't truly bound them to my will yet.
One day, I'll let you know. Until then, I simply ask you to keep your distance. He'd marked out potential pawns Uchiha Obito among them, but no final choice had been made. It all depended on how things played out. So you're not going to tell me anything? Shin smiled. It didn't matter. He already knew everything. Chapter 219, Failed Threats Turned Back on Him.
Madara, if all you summoned me for was to tell me you're dying and that you've arranged a pawn, Shin said lightly, then I'm not inclined to stay here any longer. Shin looked around the gloomy cavern. He'd been here before, and he still disliked it.
Let's go.
I can't stand this place, Kushina said quickly. The dark, underground space was unsettling.
She couldn't understand how Madara could stand living here. Madara, I suggest you find a nicer place to live.
Hiding underground like a rat is embarrassing for someone of your stature. Shin offered Madara some unsolicited advice before leaving. A chill glinted in Madara's eyes, though he remained silent.
Do you want to fight?
Shin asked, noticing the brief murderous intent flicker in Madara's gaze.
If that's the case, count me in. Kushina clenched her fists.
She had been wanting to test his strength. Me too, Makoto said, activating her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and glaring at Madara.
Madara frowned.
That chakra, and those complex patterns, it was definitely the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. He had asked White Zetsu to gather information on Uchiha Makoto. She shouldn't have been able to awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan.
And Uzumaki Shin, how had he awakened it? Madara's knowledge of Shin was limited. He only knew about Shin's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, not his Rinne Tenseigan. Even if he did, he wouldn't understand. Shin was the first to possess such eyes. Madara, if you want to fight, I'm happy to oblige. Just don't regret it later. He was fully aware Madara, in his weakened state, was no match for Kushina and Makoto together, let alone Shin himself. Madara hesitated, then shook his head. He hadn't intended to fight. He'd just been annoyed by Shin's mocking words. He wasn't known for his patience. If it weren't for his grand plan, he would have attacked Shin already. Finally, Madara spoke in a cold tone. Uzumaki Shin, I hope you won't interfere with my revival plan. Otherwise. Otherwise what? Madara's implicit threat only served to annoy Shin. He was considering killing Madara right now. Madara's existence had been useful before, but now, Shin didn't care if Madara died or if the entire Naruto storyline collapsed. He had initially wanted Madara to revive Kagaya Otsutsuki so he could copy her immortality, but he had already achieved that. In other words, Madara's existence was no longer essential. Killing him or letting him live was purely Shin's whim at this point. Even if I die, I have contingencies. Try crossing me if you dare. Madara sat back down and closed his eyes. Madara, I think you'll find the future more interesting if you're alive. So I'll spare you for now. But, don't ever threaten me again. Shin released his chakra, the pressure shaking the cavern, threatening to collapse it. The pressure was focused on Madara, who felt like a mountain was crushing him, an oppressive tidal wave that left him nearly gasping. Kushina and Makoto quietly watched, letting Shin flex his dominance. Moments later, Shin withdrew the pressure and turned to leave. Once Shin, Kushina, and Makoto vanished through Yamatsu Hirasaka, the heavy aura lifted. Madara slumped against the wall, sweat beading at his temples. Is that brat really that strong? Madara was shaken. Shin's chakra pressure had been suffocating, something he'd never experienced, even when facing Hashirama Senju. He had underestimated Shin, who might be even stronger than he had imagined. How did he gain such power? Madara put that question aside for now. He had to reassess Shin's threat. If Shin interfered, Madara's revival plan would fail. While Madara fretted, Shin felt quite pleased with himself. He's probably stewing in misery right now, he said with a smile. He should be. You're a major threat to him. Shin, I think we should just kill him, Makoto said seriously. She didn't know what Madara might be plotting. He was Uchiha Madara, after all, his schemes were legendary. I'd also like to fight him, Kushina said confidently. Don't underestimate him.
I can obliterate him with zero effort, but that's me.
Kushina, you or Makoto alone aren't necessarily guaranteed an easy fight. And Makoto, don't worry too much. Madara is just another pawn of Black Setsu. With me around, none of his plots matter.
Shin said this because he had the power to crush Madara.
Before absolute power, schemes were meaningless. And he believed Madara wouldn't do anything reckless against him.
He wasn't stupid, he knew the consequences. He wouldn't act without absolute certainty, and that certainty would only come after he became the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki.
Chapter 220, Still as weak as before.
After traveling for half a month, Shin, Kushina, and Makoto returned to the land of whirlpools. The situation in the war had changed. The Third Raikage's death had greatly impacted Kumo.
This was good news for Konoha, but terrible news for Kumo.
Their pillar of support was gone. The Third Raikage's son had vowed revenge on Shin. Shin had heard the news, but he didn't care.
Didn't have the strength to challenge him.
Even at his peak, wasn't that impressive in Shin's eyes.
He wasn't even as strong as his father.
Of course, that was in the original story.
Perhaps things would be different now.
Maybe would train harder to avenge his father and surpass his original strength. But even if he did, he wouldn't be able to defeat Shin.
Kumo couldn't target Konoha for now.
The Third Raikage's death had caused internal conflict. Who had just become the Fourth Raikage, had to withdraw and deal with the problems within the village.
Konoha had benefited greatly.
All they had to pay was 1 billion ryo.
On the Land of Rain battlefield, things were also looking up for Konoha.
Minato Namikaze was turning the tide with his Flying Thunder God technique.
He could easily kill Jonin, and no one could stop him.
And in their fight against Kirigakure, the Uchiha clan was finally able to unleash their full power.
The situation was improving for Konoha.
You're back early,
Tsunade said when she saw Shin, Kushina, and Makoto. Shin could sense resentment in her voice. She was angry. The Third Raikage wasn't easy to deal with.
It took some time, Shin said with a chuckle.
Shin and the Third Raikage died half a month ago, Konan said. You were out having fun for half a month. You must have forgotten about us. Kushina poked Shin.
That was a terrible excuse.
Makoto looked embarrassed.
If Shin hadn't said they should return, they would still be out there having fun.
Mei Terumi watched them, enjoying the drama.
She even giggled at Shin's awkwardness.
Shin glanced at Mei Terumi.
She had grown bolder. She even dared to laugh at him now. He decided to ignore her for now and focus on appeasing Tsunade and Konan. It took a lot of effort to calm them down.
Tsunade regretted not going with them.
She should have gone instead of researching wood release.
By the way, Danzo sent someone to deliver this. Tsunade placed 900 million ryo before Shin. Why did Danzo send this much money? She asked curiously.
We killed the Third Raikage and earned some extra money from Danzo. We made a total of 1.5 billion ryo this time, Shin said with a smile.
Kushina had already collected the reward from the black market.
They had originally planned to give the Third Raikage's body to the black market as proof of his death.
But Shin didn't give it to them, and they didn't complain.
As long as they confirmed the Third Raikage was dead, it was fine.
They didn't dare to anger the Reaper of the Shinobi world. I earned all this money. Kushina's eyes were practically sparkling.
Shin was the one who killed the Third Raikage, not you. So technically, Shin earned the money, Makoto said.
Shin only delivered the final blow.
The Raikage was already on his last breath. And even if Shin earned it, it's still mine.
Kushina put the money away. Mei, I want to check on your training. Come with me, Shin said, glancing at Mei.
He hadn't forgotten her laughing at him earlier. He would use this opportunity to punish her.
Mei's heart skipped a beat.
She looked at Shin's expressionless face and gulped.
Let's go.
Shin didn't give her a chance to refuse. Konan, I think I'm in trouble, Mei said, her face pale.
It's because you were laughing at him earlier.
Shin and I can be petty sometimes, Conan whispered.
Did I just hear someone call me petty? Did I mishear?
Shin suddenly popped his head back in, looking at Conan.
No, Shin and I.
You must have misheard.
Conan blushed, embarrassed.
She hadn't expected him to hear her.
Fine, I'll let it slide this time. Conan breathed a sigh of relief. Mei, what are you waiting for? Come on.
Mei Terumi had no choice but to follow Shin. She hoped he wouldn't be too harsh on her, considering she was a beautiful girl.
At the training grounds, Shin didn't actually punish her.
He just tested her strength. You've improved, but not much, Shin said, looking at Mei.
I feel like I've gotten a lot stronger, Mei muttered.
She was satisfied with her progress, which was far faster than before, thanks to Shin's guidance.
Really? I don't see it. You're still as weak as before. Mei was indignant. Weak? That's so mean.
She thought her strength was outstanding for her age.
How old are you? Shin asked. Mei Terumi was stunned. I just turned 16. Why are you asking? Are you trying to gather intel on me so you can pursue me? Thwack!
Shin flicked her forehead.
You're overthinking it. Your imagination is quite impressive, though.
Mei Terumi rubbed her forehead, pouting.
Why did he hit her? It wasn't gentlemanly at all.
She wasn't the mature woman she would become in the future. She was still a 16-year-old girl. That wraps up this part of What If Copy System in Naruto.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.